The January 2023 transfer market, the window transfer market for this year was absolutely insane. There was so much money that was thrown around. There was, in fact, a number of big name players who ended up making a lot of moves, and generally it was a very, very exciting time for fans. However, there are many who have raised serious concerns over, of course, the way or the amount of expenditure or outlay that has been put in by certain clubs, particularly Premier League clubs, really, because the bulk of the spending from this window has come from the Premier League, and within the Premier League itself, the bulk of the spending has come from one club, and that is, of course, Chelsea. So there have been questions raised, and in fact, one of the most vocal proponents or opponents of the Premier League style of spending has been La Liga's president Javier Tebas, and he in fact hit out very clearly at what he perceives to be a quote-unquote doped market that exists in the British football system. In fact, he had some very strong things to say. So before we actually go into discussing the topic in hand, it's important that we talk about what exactly he said. So what it is that Tebas said was that the British market is a doped market. You can see it in this winter market, where Chelsea have made almost half the signings in the Premier League. Now, of course, there's no arguing with that point, at least the second half of it, because Chelsea did make a lot of signings, and of course the Premier League, which figures of which we're going to come to in a bit, did the most amount of spending in this particular transfer market. But there's more to it. He said some other things as well. He also said that it is dangerous that the markets are doped, as has been happening, as that can jeopardize football. Now, again, this is not a new argument. It's an argument that many people have been acutely aware of, which is in fact why things like financial fair play have been brought about as a way to kind of ensure that spending is regulated. And what's more, he then of course took the chance to mention the fact that Spanish clubs have in fact been taking a lot of steps to ensure that they are sustainable, a word that he used a lot in this particular press interaction. He said that, "I'm happy Spanish clubs are economically sustainable. That means we have a future for years to come." Again, hard to argue with his point, but there is of course counterpoints to be made, and we'll get to those counterpoints in just a bit. Yet what cannot be denied is that La Liga have been very, very stringent with regards to the implementation of financial fair play rules and sustainability rules, which is why you've seen Barcelona being one of those clubs who've really struggled to kind of spend a lot of money, because Barcelona earn so much debt, they're not allowed to, by La Liga's regulations, to actually be spending too much, and their budget cap, transfer caps, salary caps, all of which are capped lower because of the amount of debt they're in. So La Liga are taking things seriously in that regard. That cannot be denied. And to further make the point or try to understand why it is that Tebas and other people really have raised some eyebrows at the spending, let's quickly take a look at how it is money was spent amongst Europe's top 5 leagues during the January 2023 transfer window. So if you take a quick look at the figures, the Premier League is far and ahead above all of the other top leagues. In fact, the Premier League team spent £815 million this transfer window. Liga was the second next spender with £110 million spent on transfers. Bundesliga clubs spent £60 million. La Liga and Serie A clubs spent £25 million each. Now again, if you do the math, the combined figures for the next 4 leagues after the Premier League are nowhere close to the amount that the Premier League clubs have spent. So really, as I said, that's a lot of money that has been spent, and quite easily it is easy to understand why that European or other European markets are looking at the British market with so much of let's say they're being very suspect about all of these things. But there is also another thing that is worth noting, is that why exactly is it the case that English clubs are so emboldened to be so brazen with regards to their spending? Well, for one, the margins are very fine. You note for a fact that if you can actually a 1 signing or 2 signings here, that can be the difference between finishing one place higher or lower. But perhaps more importantly, there's also the fact that FFP regulations, the way they are right now across Europe, just aren't quite frankly stringent enough. In fact, you saw it when clubs like Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City were in breach of FFP. All they ended up getting was small fines. So really all that happened was they were given a slap on the wrist, and then they're like, okay, no problem, back to business as usual. So if football as a whole is really serious about making FFP a thing, they need to ensure that financial fair play has teeth, because right now clubs are actually okay coming close to breaching or even breaking regulations because they know that all they'll get away with is a little bit of a fine. And what's a little bit of a fine when you've won silverware and set yourself up to win more silverware? So to make things clear, is it wrong that Premier League clubs can afford to spend so much? Yes. But is it their fault? Not really, because the way football works has always been like this. FFP, don't forget, is a relatively new thing, and one of the reasons La Liga is so strict when it comes to FFP and sustainability now is because they've seen two clubs fall victim to actually, and not just two clubs, two of their biggest clubs in Real Madrid and Barcelona, the latter of which is a very recent case, actually come close to bankruptcy or come close to, having serious money problems that would actually threaten the image of the league the world over. So it's not just something that La Liga are doing out of the benefit of or the benevolence of their own hearts. One of the reasons that that's strict is because, quite frankly, well, the future of their own league depends on it. With England right now, they know there's a lot of clubs that actually can attract a fan base, and more importantly, the money from TV deals just keeps on rolling in, so clubs are emboldened to spend more. Long story short, if clubs are to be taking FFP seriously, then UEFA and the game stakeholders need to ensure that FFP has more teeth and that there are real consequences for falling afoul rather than just a slap on the wrist kind of fine. But that's just how I feel about it. What do you guys think? Well, you can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video, and also don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Last but not least, don't forget to download the SportsTech app as well. Thank you all once again for joining us. I hope to see you with us through the day. For now though, goodbye.